Hello and welcome to Eco Girl in a Modern World. My name is Shelley and my channel is dedicated to talking about ways to be more environmentally friendly in a modern context. This week we're going to keep it super short. I had a lot of events going on, so it's been very exciting, and we're going to have some exciting new content to come in the weeks to follow. But one thing that I noticed is that I had gone on a trip recently, and the destination that I went to is typically a much hotter climate than where I'm from. I live on the mid-Atlantic side. And when I came back home, it was really amazing. It being, if you're watching this video at the time it posts, it is still early, it's still late spring, not quite summer yet. And it is still been, the weather has been very, very up and down. It was, when I got back from my trip, it was actually hotter and more humid than my destination, which was very, very strange. It is definitely climate change, which is not a good thing. But I noticed that it was fluctuating really, really badly where, we'd have several days of, 70-degree weather, 80-degree weather, and then a couple of days of 90, which was really hot. And then it would drop down. We'd have a cool air front come in and it would drop to 58 degrees and raining. So with the temps being all over the board like that, and I've mentioned before in other videos that I like to rotate out my clothes. So I do have a bin of clothes that is specifically summer. And usually I don't pull those clothes out until the beginning of June or at least mid-May, but I might have to pull them out sooner rather than later and then just keep some of those transitional pieces like sweaters and jackets for the cooler days, because it has been all over the spectrum and that is not normal, but it is what it is. So I wanted to dedicate this video today to talking about ways to stay cool without turning the AC on just yet. Because again, AC is a big deal. It pulls a lot of energy and it becomes a perpetrating cycle, which we'll see in a minute, of carbon emissions. So we don't want to be quick to turn that AC on, right? If we have a few sporadic hot days, there are ways that you can try to ventilate and keep cool without relying on air conditioning. So that's our subject for today. So again, AC is a kind of a really bad cycle. When you turn AC on, it not only pulls a lot of energy, but it uses a lot. The refrigerant in AC releases a lot of carbon emissions with just the power that you need to generate it. Also, there's different types of freon. And actually, there's certain types of freon, which is the refrigerant that fuels the AC, that are no longer in use because there are certain refrigerants that have that release chemicals that perpetrate the carbon cycle. You think just regular CO2 is the biggest culprit. That's not the case. If you've seen my video about the ozone layer, there are other types of chemicals that are released specifically with refrigerants like AC that actually eat holes in the ozone layer like 10 times faster than CO2 does. And a majority of that, those chemicals are from refrigerants, and I'll post a video down below that talks about that. But basically, we don't want to rely on AC because what happens is you use AC to cool down, but then AC releases all of these chemicals that make it hotter, trap more greenhouse gas, and then it makes us rely on turning the AC on more. So we really don't want to cool down for 5 minutes just to heat up worse and cause really bad environmental problems. So there's a lot of ways that you can not rely on AC at all, or kind of reserve it until it actually gets to the point in summer when you actually need it, which is what we're looking at now. You might not, of course, use your best judgment, but you might not be ready to turn the AC on yet because, you turn the AC on and then all of a sudden the temperature drops to 58 and you're freezing. So, so we can try to use some of these tips to kind of gauge it where we don't have to be so reliant. Now, one other thing with AC and the way that the sun heats the planet is there is something called an albedo effect. And what it is if you've ever, if you've ever gone out in the middle of summer wearing a dark color, like today I have black on, if you have, you'll notice that you start to feel hot when you're wearing a dark color. And that's because the sun's rays are absorbed easier by dark colors, any dark color, black, navy, anything dark kind of absorbs heat. While light colors repels heat, it doesn't absorb as much. And you see that, and it's something called an albedo effect. And you see that in at the poles where there's ice caps, right? Anywhere the sun shines and it's hitting ice or light colored snow, the chances of the rays being reflected back and not absorbing are better. While anywhere that the sun is touching direct ocean, that's has an absorbing effect. It's going to go straight through and be absorbed by the dark in the ocean. So that's also another reason why the breaking of ice caps, the melting of ice caps is a very scary sign, is because we need that reflection. We need the light colored snow to reflect things. We do not want our ice caps to melt. That would, take away, that would fuel take away from the albedo effect, and it would heat up our oceans. And if our oceans heat up even as much as 1%, we're going to be doing a lot of damage. We need to protect our coral. Our coral is like the rainforest of the ocean. Coral and other coral reefs and other things, they maintain 25% of life in the ocean. That's 1/4 of the life in the ocean. So we need to control this greenhouse effect. We can't have CO2 from the rest of the world. And you think the ice caps are so far away and that our actions don't affect it. All of the CO2 from AC, from cars, from air conditioning units, that goes to the caps, and it will melt our ice caps and fuel the heat in the wrong direction. So the way that you can be of help on a modern level is try not to turn the AC on. Don't be that person that cranks the AC and then layers on the blankets. Come on, don't be that person, right? If you're having a hot day, there's a few tips that you can do to combat that. Now, one last thing we're going to talk about, and we're going to jump into solutions, is there are something you saw, we talked a minute ago about albedo effect, which is in the rural, the non-populated areas of the planet. And albedo can be anywhere, any snow-capped area or any place that reflects light. But a lot of the urban areas, or the lot of densely populated areas of the world who have air conditionings in every home, are going to create something called a heat island. So a heat island is kind of like the opposite of the albedo effect. And a heat island is exactly what we're talking about, where if everybody has their own little unit, in your house, you have central air, in your car, you're cranking the AC, all of those emit carbon. And what happens is the more densely populated areas that have more of these units is going to create something called a heat island. And what that is you're using AC to cool down, the carbon's going up into the air, the carbon is breaking down the ozone layer, which is trapping more greenhouse gas, which is increasing the heat. And then, just like we mentioned, dark things absorb heat. And what's asphalt? What's roads, right? When you're in a more like a city, or even if you're in suburbia, if you have a lot of road and nothing to reflect that heat back or absorb that heat, and we're going to talk about that in a minute with plants or trees, it's going to not only our AC is trapping heat, and the heat's hitting the earth and absorbing in the earth, which is making the asphalt hotter, and that's emitting more heat, and it's causing a greenhouse effect. It's like it reinforces it in a bad way, that for the 15 minutes of cool that our AC is giving us, it's giving us probably 3 hours of heat from the effect that that process is having, and it's creating something called a heat island. So what we want to do is we want to try to mitigate becoming a heat island. And the way you can do that is very simple. There's a few ways. Again, if it's springtime, if you do not need to turn on your AC, do not turn on your AC. And I know this is going to be really hard to do because you're going to have that 92-day weirdo day that you're sweating. But again, do your best. The best ways to do this is a few little rules. First off, heat rises. So if you have a multi-floor home, expect the top floor to be the hottest, and definitely you want to try to ventilate. You want to try to open windows so the heat can get out. So that way, as it's going through your house, you can just let the heat out, especially on the top floors. On all of the floors in between, and I'll post a video down below that really talks about this, there is a cross ventilation thing that you can do where, and this is going to sound strange, if you open a window on the cool side of your house or the side in which the breeze is blowing, if you open all the doors in your house and let the breeze kind of go through the house from the cool side to the hot side or where the sun is coming in, and then on the hot side of the house, so you've got all your doors open, you got the wind coming through the cool side, the cool room, you want to create a cross breeze where as it's going through your house, on the you want to have an exit area for all of that hot air. And the way you do the exit area, and this is a little strange, open the window in the hot room, the room that's getting the sun, and point a fan facing out. So not facing in from the window, facing out through the window. And what you'll have is you'll have the cool air coming in through the cool side of your house, cross-ventilating through your house, and exiting, being pushed out by the fan through the hot side. So what you're doing is you're in essence pulling hot air and letting it escape, letting it go out. One other thing you can do is if you want to really, if you really like that cool effect of AC, you can also use that fan, facing you, but you can put a bowl of ice in front, and particularly metal bowls. You see how cold metal retains. If you just put, like a metal bowl of ice, and preferably that, the ice not being from an ice maker, save some energy and just let it, ice cubes freezing in a regular ice dish, dump it out into a metal bowl, and then put the fan in front of the ice and let it blow. It will blow cold air without you having to turn your AC on. Now, a few other things that you can do is that you can utilize photosynthesis. I've noticed on my trip when I went, I saw a beautiful outdoor trellis that had grapes on it. And of course, this project takes a little bit of time, but trees are always a natural cooling agent. And if you create a trellis that is covered in, vine-like plants, and definitely you also want to look at the type of plant compared with the amount of heat you get, because of course there are areas of the continent and areas of the world where it would be too much heat and it might kill your plant. But if your summers, just look at the average for your summers and say, oh, okay, this plant would really thrive. Or there's plenty of websites where you can look and see, okay, what type of climbing plant would do really, really well in my latitude, in my region of wherever I'm at. And go ahead and try to get that growing, because that not only, does, contributes to, it's what we call a carbon sink. Anytime you plant a tree, anytime you're letting the trees absorb all this excess carbon and emit oxygen. So of course that's a good way to handle it. But you could also, like in the event of that trellis, you could get some grapes or you could get some fruit. It can be like part of your garden. And sometimes you can do that. You don't necessarily have to have a backyard to do that, but of course, if you have a backyard, that's a brilliant idea, because that not only combats climate change, but it gives you a nice shady area that would also contribute to the cooler air, because you have a green area that is helping to not only absorb that heat and not let it just seep into the ground, but actually breed some shade and contribute to your garden. Now, a few other things that we could talk about, and I've been posting this on all of my social media channels, is there is also natural architecture where AC was not required. And I think this is really brilliant. Of course, a lot of these buildings are in more in countries or in areas, thousands of millennia ago, and in the warmer climates of the planet, of the world. But it's brilliant the way the architecture does, and it's what they call I'm sorry, I put it up on the screen, but it's ventilation that is built into the building. And there is, some of these buildings were built in the 16 and 1700s, I think, in Italy, and it's just really beautiful, the architecture, because it naturally circulates air, just like we were talking about with the fan, and it keeps things cool without you having to have AC. The other thing that's really nice is that if you do have rooms that are below ground, that is always a good way to keep cool, especially in the summer. I remember one time I had gone to the caverns, and this was amazing. I had gone to just some caves, some caverns, and they talked about the moment that you get 50 feet below ground, or not even that much. I think it was like 20 feet below ground. It's a constant 52 degree temperature in both summer and winter. And it was funny, when we went into these caves, you saw kind of candelabras, like little candle holders. And what would happen is, like in the 1700s, people used to host parties down there because it would stay the same temperature. It'd be like 58 degrees, which is, a little cool, but imagine in the dead of summer going down there and having a party where it's naturally cool. That, and it's a constant. It's just a natural, a natural way that nature works. Those caves are remain at that temperature. So, of course, your basement is not a cave, but it might feel like one. But that's another way. Any area that's below ground that doesn't have any windows or any places where heat can come in, that's a good way to stay cool. And of course, if that's like your office space or workspace, I'm always big on having some sunlight. Need some vitamin D. But of course, when the summer is getting really, really hot, that's a good way, while the, top floors are cooling down, you can kind of stay cool by staying in subterranean kind of areas. So these are just a few ways that you can try to avoid using AC. Very last thing is also, when it comes to cars, please don't idle in your car. That's the last thing that really contributes to all this. I'll see those posts that are like, oh, I brought my dog with me and I just left the car running with the AC on. You don't, when you've probably seen it, that school buses and regular buses are not allowed to idle, because for every 10 minutes that your car idles, it is 1 pound of carbon, plus all of, just like we said, plus all those refrigerants that we talk about. That's not good. You do not want to idle. Public buses aren't allowed to do it. You should not do it either. It just contributes to the problem, and it makes it hotter. And especially when you're doing that in parking lots, which would have that heat island effect, or would perpetrate that heat island effect. So just be mindful. These are a few ways that you can stay cool as it's starting to heat up. And definitely kind of go to the EPA, look at your area and see how you can make it better as a whole, as a community. Planting trees, being mindful, doing these little steps really does go a long way. And if everybody does it, it can really make a world of change. But I'll go ahead and wrap up this video. I thank you so much for joining me today. If you like the content of my channel, I would be very honored if you would like, comment, and subscribe. And please join me next time. Next time we're going to the Repair Cafe. I'm going to see if I can go ahead and get my alarm clock fixed. And I'm going to be speaking to other people who like to fix things, fix and repair rather than throw away. So that's going to be a really fun one, and we'll get a chance to get out on a field trip. So I hope you can join me again for that video, and I'll see you then. Bye.